Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. I just got a little bit confused there because it's the first time I've got 3 guests with me in the studio, which is absolutely wonderful. It's great to have you all back this week on another Body Health and Mind show. I'm Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum. I'm a local GP in the community, works at Bretton Path Healthcare, and it's great to be back. And recently, I was just saying to somebody before the show that I always talk about medical or clinical issues. And a couple of weeks ago, I had a bit of a brainstorm and thought, why don't I speak about things that matter to the community? All of you know that this is predominantly a Muslim community radio station, but the ethos of the station is to build bridges and to integrate with all sectors of the community, because we know that Peterborough is such a hugely wonderful and diverse city. And we've got to celebrate our differences as well. But what we have in common are having some great shows that talk about things that most of us love, like sport, for example, like music, for example, and matters that relate to health and societal issues. So, without further ado, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what to do if you'd like to participate. So we're on the Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live, Twitter and Twitch, and I'd really like you to call in on 01733 602 133 to talk about our show today, which I will explain in a short while. Likewise, you could also text us on 074 1119 1062. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our topic for today, which is something that has been has been a long time coming. And that is about the issue of fostering awareness within the Muslim community and to a degree within the South Asian diaspora as well. And I've got some great guests on the show who I'm going to be introducing. I've got 2 counsellors with me. I'll get them to introduce themselves. So, Counsellor Noreen B, fire away and tell me who you are. Tell our listeners who you are.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. I'm one of the counsellors in North Ward.
Wonderful. Counsellor Dennis Jones.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dennis Jones. I'm a counsellor for Dogsthorpe Ward in Peterborough and chair of the Corporate Parenting Committee.
Thank you very much. And Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I'm Amanda Carter, so I'm one of the managers at Peterborough City Council. We work across Peterborough and Cambridge, but I'm responsible for fostering recruitment in the Peterborough area.
And it's great that we've had a couple of meetings, haven't we, guys, about fostering, the importance of fostering, especially within the Muslim community. And I guess I'd like to ask you, all within your capacities, why are we talking about this now? Amanda, may I please ask you?
Okay, so in Peterborough, we have at the moment 407 children that are looked after. Of those, 59 of them are Muslim faith. And what we really want to do is try and keep our children local. So at the moment, there's not enough foster carers. So that's resulting in some children having to move out of area or into provisions that are not suitable for them. And yeah, we really want people's help to kind of keep our children local.
Okay, well, that sounds fair enough. And I think that it's a good vision to have. Dennis, you are chair of the Corporate Parenting Committee. Would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about what this committee represents and what children or individuals you look after under that committee, please?
It's a good question. The Corporate Parenting Committee is in fact responsible for all the looked after children within the city. And the Corporate Parenting Committee is made up of officers and members, and our job is, it revolves around one key question: would this be good enough for my child? So whilst we are not their parents, or we're in the Latin phrase loco parentis, what we are doing is making sure that everything that they get, they're entitled to, and it's the best that we possibly can, given they're often not with their families. So it's there are councillors from each of the major political parties, and there are officers, and we operate across the whole of Peterborough.
And that's great to hear, Dennis. And also, I guess it's really pertinent to say at this time that when we talk about children within our city, that this isn't politically motivated at all, is it? I mean, the welfare of children is everybody's business, isn't it?
It is, and it's also, it comes under what we call, without boring everybody, a governance committee. So we are not scrutinising decisions. We are, in fact, working together for the greater good of the looked after children in Peterborough. And I've been a champion for foster carers now for about 18 months. And Noreen and I work very closely together on it. My responsibility is the recruitment of foster carers, and I'm sure Noreen will talk a little bit more about the training and retention of foster carers so that everybody is prepared for the roles and to make it as fulfilling as it possibly can be, both for themselves and indeed the children they are looking to support.
Well, that's a really good introduction about what you do on the Corporate Parenting Committee as well, your background in terms of why this is so important to talk about, Amanda. And Noreen, I'd like to come to you as well. I think that it's incredibly praiseworthy that you have taken such what I would think is, and what I think we all agree on, the fact that this is such a niche subject, isn't it? Something that's not often talked about. And I'd like to share with you a comment that has just come through, actually. We've got Mr. Adil Shabir Salam, a huge hello to my friend Noreen B. She's doing a great job in our ward. Shabina, you're also a great asset to Peterborough. Oh, thank you very much. But we're not going to talk about me because actually, Noreen, well done. It's fabulous. Honestly, you really are, in terms of raising the profile of the whole subject around fostering awareness. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your role involved with this, what training you've undertaken, and why you feel so passionate about it?
First of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Brother Adil for the message. Secondly, yes, I'm working closely with Dennis and Amanda. I am fairly new to this, but the help is just always there when you need it. They've set up some training sessions, and it's a subject really close to my heart because I actually wanted to go into fostering a good few years back, but I didn't know where to inquire or, where to get the right information, but I wanted to stay local, so I didn't go ahead with it. But even now, when I think there are people out there, especially within the Asian community, who want to go ahead with this, but they're just not sure where to look out for advice or who to go to or who to approach. And basically, I just want to sort of create awareness within the Asian community, sort of to keep our own children local if we can.
That's a wonderful ethos. It really is, and very commendable as well. Amanda, coming back to you, and before I do, we've had another comment as well. Salam, Dr. Shabina. Mr. Munir, all the way from Leeds, would you believe it, listens to the show and Salam Radio every single week. So thank you and welcome. It's wonderful to have you. Amanda, why are we seeing this problem with a low uptake of foster carers coming forward for children in the Muslim community? And before you answer that, could I please ask you to highlight some of the challenges? What are the reasons why Muslim children are coming into care? Are there any identified unique reasons, or is it sort of just consistent across what other ethnic minorities or say children from Caucasian diasporas are also experiencing, or do they have their own unique circumstances?
No. I mean, the majority of children that come into care come in through the category of neglect.
Sure.
And that's the same across the piece, really. What I would say is that, nationally there's a shortage of foster carers. Mm-hmm. And that's for a variety of reasons. Some of it is around kind of myths. People don't realise that, they think they might be too old when actually there's not an upper age limit. They think that they have to be in a mortgaged home. Well, actually, renters can foster. They worry if they're single, they can't foster. They think they have to be a couple or married, which is not correct.
Yeah.
They might think that, they might have health issues and think that will preclude them. Well, actually, we look at that on an individual basis. So it's the same for sort of, the general population as in in the Muslim community in that you know, the only criteria is that you have to be over 21, you have to have a spare room, you have to have leave to remain in the country, and you can't have any convictions against children. But everything else is a sort of, you know, based on individual circumstances. But I think maybe in the Muslim communities, it might be that, you know, because I think historically, you know, in those communities, a lot of people have looked after each other's children, a bit more so than, you know, in the white British population. I think that is changing as people, you know, geographically are moving away from one another and that type of thing. So we are seeing sort of more children coming into care. But having said that, I think sometimes as well, people might not be aware, not just in the Muslim community, but generally about kind of, you know, the need for foster carers and how many children we are actually talking about that need that place of safety and care. And I think for children, you know, their ethnic and religious heritage is so important. And unfortunately, because we don't have enough foster carers of Muslim faith, what's happening is that, you know, children are having to be placed outside of that remit, and quite often outside of the county as well.
Which is really sad.
It really is.
It really is. And I was just sort of wanting to share. So I've shared the video, the live video for this programme. And if you're listening out there, I'd really like you to ask some questions, because part of having these programmes is to raise the profile of this very important issue. We can see the passion is there. We can see the care is there from all of you that are here, because you really feel that something needs to be done about it. And Dennis, I'll come to you as somebody who represents a ward in the centre of Peterborough, which has, again, a diverse population. Do you see, or are you faced with, not just as a corporate parent, but I guess as a counsellor, somebody that is faced with issues within your ward that are of a nature that is linked to sort of social services or the welfare of children from different cultural backgrounds? Have you seen that in your experience?
Sadly, yes. Excuse me. The thing is that being in an urban ward, excuse me, we do suffer higher levels of deprivation than the rural wards. One of our fellow councillors often says that the ward he represents, poverty is two girls having to share a pony. Were it were true in wards like North, Dogsthorpe, Central, Park Ward, where obviously people are living, there's lots of rise in houses of multiple occupation. That most of those people have felt the brunt of the downturn in the economy, and so we see this all the time. And it's not just children of from Muslim families, it's right across the piece, Shabina, and certainly there's a high proportion of Eastern European families also in my ward. But yes, and we're forging far closer links with the local junior schools, and the closer the links you do forge, then the more you get to see the issues very much, to use a phrase, up close and personal. And it's makes the job very worthwhile. And it's wonderful to work with Amanda and the other officers to see what we can do to help. But the truth is that it also, we see it on an all too frequent basis. It's not going away anytime soon, and we need everybody's help to ameliorate or reduce what's happening out there.
Thank you for elaborating on that, Dennis. And I think it's important for our listeners also to be aware that as representatives, many councillors, that I would say are on the front line, there are things that have come about as well as a result of the COVID pandemic, issues of domestic violence, for example, where victims, as it were, weren't visible. And I'm sure that we see the very same with those children as well, who are subjected to questionable circumstances of a safeguarding nature, in which those issues have now become visible. And Noreen, I'd like to turn to you to ask you a bit. Again, whenever I want to ask you a question, there's somebody that gives you praise. So I'm going to take that opportunity today. And we've got Husna K. Salam Baji Noreen. So somebody there, we've got a whole fan base for you over here as well. So I'd like to ask you, you also represent a ward with high deprivation, just like Dennis does. What has your experience been within the Muslim community? I guess that it's quite advantageous that you're bilingual, you understand the cultural practices and the nuances and the sensitivities around this. What's the feedback that has been given to you when you've tried to raise this subject with families in the Muslim community about fostering awareness?
First of all, again, welcome salam to Husna, and thank you very much again. Basically, I have spoken to quite a few people, different age groups as well. It's very positive, and people are very sort of encouraging regarding this as well. But the main question is they obviously need, I think within the community, they want somebody else to take the lead first, and then they'll see how it goes. But so far, extremely encouraging with this.
Well, that's good to know. And it's good as a foundation, isn't it, that you're setting that precedent. All of you are. And what I'd like to ask you, Amanda, is from a health perspective as well. We see children going into care, irrespective of what their backgrounds are, who are most probably very young, don't understand why removal from their homes is essential. What are the range of, I won't say health, but mental health issues that you see with these children and those within the Muslim community? Because like you say, that there is a cultural practice of looking after each other's children. So you're obviously faced with circumstances where wider families become involved as well, where you might have somebody that volunteers and says, oh, I will look after this child. But what are the mental health effects on these children that you come across as somebody that looks after children and sort of, this service in particular?
Yeah,
what comes to your attention?
I mean, what I would say is that any child that's removed from their home, regardless, so for instance, even children from a stable, secure background, if you were to uproot them and put them in a home with other people, they're going to have issues just because of that, That's normal. I think the pandemic, we've seen quite a rise across the piece about, children experiencing sort of mental health issues. Specifically, it's more prevalent in the teens that we've seen it, but obviously all children struggle. But what I would say is that, what we do see is that, children are coming in and they are having, they have got, a lot of emotional trauma from what they've been through, which is completely understandable. That said, we've also seen children that have come in with that emotional trauma and they've been given stability, safety and love of their foster carers, and they've been able to kind of work with that child, support them and kind of bring them through that difficult turmoil. It doesn't happen overnight, but with resilience and consistency, people can make a real difference to the lives of children, not just now, in the short term, but obviously in the long term as well. Where I see these children getting that stability and security in the short term, that has far-reaching implications for their adult life as well. So, it is difficult when children come in and you see them struggling emotionally or with mental health issues, but, they are only young and they are only children, and you can support them through it, given enough care and love and security.
That's wonderful to hear. Are there any organisations that, whilst they're in care and not placed with a family, Amanda, are there any organisations that help support the mental health? So they're obviously still going to have access to a GP service as well. How do we address that? Do we signpost them to those organisations, or does that automatically take place?
Well, there is, for children that are looked after, there is clinical support. So we do have, therapists on board. Sometimes that's therapists within the sort of council remit, and sometimes, they might be having therapeutic support from CAMH or, one of the sort of more formal therapeutic services. But where we highlight children do need that extra bit of support. They do, we do everything we can to secure that. We also have life story workers as well in the council. So they're people that therapeutically help children to understand why they've needed to come into care. And the reasons they're in care, and they sort of work through that sort of process with them, which we find the earlier you do that, the better really with the children. So yeah, there is a lot of support out there, but it's making sure that we have that holistic package for the children when they come into care.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that with us, because I didn't actually, it was something that actually came into my mind, and something I wanted to tie in with the health aspect of this programme as well, which I think is really important, having a look at those external aspects that are related to a child's health as well. And I'll ask you a little bit about that in a minute. Dennis, your role on the Corporate Parenting Committee, how much of fostering is discussed, and do the decisions, are you in a position to make decisions or recommendations? That's what I'd really like to know in terms of influencing the outcome of these children.
It's largely recommendations.
Sure.
As corporate parents, we do have formal and informal meetings, and it would be wonderful if people wanted to sort of watch those meetings on the Peterborough City Council YouTube channel. And one of the things that we do is we have foster carer meetings where we have representatives from the foster carers, and they talk about the issues. And if I can give you a wonderful example, is the dental provision in the city has been particularly poor. And it was raised at one of these meetings, and obviously it became a standing joke, because I kept raising this, because obviously if you can't accept that people just can't get the teeth looked at. And one of our fellow councillors actually turned around and had a word with her dental practice, and the dental practice took on most, if not all, of the looked after children in Peterborough, and we all of a sudden had a result. So it is that water on stone. So it's not we're making that decision, but working with the director, working with officers, we actually got a fabulous result. So the informal meetings, we have the Children in Care Council who jointly chair the meeting with me and make a contribution. So it's a great meeting. It's a wonderful atmosphere. The care experience kids love it as well, and so we have about three meetings with the children in care, and they co-chair. And then we have the formal meetings. That's the one where we tend to go through the paperwork and the papers. It's not quite so funky, but they do inform decisions that are made and recommendations that we can make to obviously improve the lives of looked after children, and just as importantly, the foster carers.
Yeah, so very influential on very many levels, actually, which is great and very rewarding as well. That's the theme that's coming out of this, isn't it?
It's the best committee on the council. Well, don't tell anybody, because I don't know.
And do you know the bit that I actually like about this, and Noreen, I'm going to bring you in here, is that this is one of those few committees that doesn't have any politics involved. You were talking about enhancing the lives of children who are vulnerable as well in many ways. And I'm going to come back to an event that you recently attended, Dennis, because I thought that was really heartening as well, with Children in Care. Was that right?
The awards?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was wonderful to see. And I'll signpost some listeners. Noreen, would you like to, obviously we've got 2 minutes left until the break. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the training that you've undertaken in terms of fostering awareness, and whether people would gain and benefit from the insight of that training at all? What you learnt?
Basically, it has been an eye-opener. I didn't expect these figures to be so high. The training is just sort of attending these meetings, and then just getting the demographics right as well. And it just sort of approaching. I mean, most of it is just sort of common sense as well.
Yeah.
Approaching different people and talking to them and just taking it from there.
I think that's important though, isn't it? Because sometimes, especially within the Asian community, and we've got 1 minute, actually, Mr. Adil Shabir, I know that you have put questions, but I'm saving those questions deliberately for the second half for all of you. So please don't think we're ignoring you. And we've got David Garner, who always throws in a joke that's really funny. So I'm going to read his joke out before we go to questions. But the great thing about that is that often people are confused on how to approach the subject with families and how we can encourage them to become foster carers. So that is a skill that you tend to learn. I wouldn't know how to broach the subject with a family, to take on another child in their care. It's a very difficult subject.
It's a very delicate one as well.
Yeah.
Because not everyone within the household will have same opinions or views about it as well. And what I've sort of, it's a misconception within the community. Quite a few people thought that the children come from broken families, which is not the case.
See you after the break.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
At Master's Pharmacy, we put your health and convenience first. We offer free blood pressure checks and blister-packed medication. With our free same-day prescription delivery service, you can have your medication when you need it. We also offer travel vaccinations, including Hajj and Umrah, along with other services to meet all your pharmacy needs. For more information, contact Master's Pharmacy on 01733 567 208 or visit us at 303 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PH.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings. Whether it is maths, English, science or 11+, Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website mastermindstuitionacademy.com or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
मार फूड स्टोर लिंकन रोड ट्रायंगल ते इतना रश ओ बल्ले ओए तुसा नहीं अंबा ने पूरे मुल्क विच रोले
पाकिस्तानी सौगातां जी अंब ले लो जामनू ले लो पाकिस्तानी ताजे मिठे अंब ते जामनू आ गए जी
यकीन करो जी भाई ना मार फूड स्टोर वाले किन्ने बरियां तो सानू पाकिस्तान तो अपनी ब्रांड दा अंब मंगवा के पूरे यूके नु नश लवांदे आ ते हुन पाकिस्तानी जामनू भी भाई ओ जने ने आ पुत्र
Amar Food Stores, Al Mishu, fresh halal meat and groceries. Address 613B Lincoln Road, Triangle, Peterborough. Telephone 01733 687374. Amar Food Stores, Meyar ka naam, Munasab Daam.
Thinking of laser hair removal but worried about cost? Well Skin Clinic, Peterborough's #1 aesthetic clinic, offers 0% finance on courses of laser hair removal. We perform thousands of treatments using the Soprano titanium in our prestigious clinic. Virtually pain-free and suitable for all skin types, our team of aesthetic professionals can help you achieve your goals affordably. Well Skin Clinic, making life-changing aesthetic treatments affordable for all. 40 Cowgate, Peterborough. Call or WhatsApp us on 01733 555540. Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our restaurant at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5pm to 10:30pm. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
You could be driving, you might be cooking, you could even be working. But whatever you're doing, you're also listening to Salam Radio. And if you're in business, your potential new customers could be listening too. So talk to them and let them know what you have to offer. Advertising on Salam Radio is affordable and effective. And by doing so, you're also supporting this valuable and important voice within the community. Call 07866 319 679 or find Salam Radio online and across social media.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Body, Health and Mind Show on this very special show on fostering awareness. And we've had a great first half an hour of this show where we've had Councillor Noreen B, our wonderful female champion from the councillor sector, who's leading on this with regards to fostering in the Muslim community. Councillor Dennis Jones, who's the chair of the Corporate Parenting Committee and has given his insights, and also the workings of the corporate parent in helping and empowering and improving the lives of vulnerable children. A great role to have. And we've got Amanda, who works for the fostering services within Peterborough City Council. And the second half, I thought we'd speak or ask questions that are coming in from the public, which are really important because people want to know. And this is exactly what we wanted, didn't we? We wanted people to. But I said, and before my friend David gets upset that I'm ignoring him. Now, this is David. He's very special and he likes to participate in my shows, which I feel privileged about, David. I say that hand on heart. And he's written a joke. So I'm going to read out your joke, David, but don't blame me if everybody doesn't laugh at it, okay? I laugh at it every week. So tonight, whilst cooking dinner, I accidentally got herbs in my eyes. I'm now parsley sighted.
Oh dear. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, David. There you go. You just started the second half of our show.
I did like it. Yeah.
And it's always got a medical sort of hint to it as well. So thank you very much. A hint of parsley. There you go. So the questions that we have now are from Adil Shabir, who's asked, I guess this is a question for you, Amanda. So once fostered, what other services are given to the children?
Okay, so when a child first comes into care, they will have an allocated social worker, so that's a social worker for them. And then the foster carer also has their own social worker as well, and we work holistically together. Then we've got, as I said, about the therapeutic services. We work, obviously they have someone in school that, you know, like Senkos and designated people that are centred on making sure that their educational needs are met. So there's certain meetings that happen in schools to make sure that they get the support that they need. We've got participation teams. So the participation team make sure that they get the opportunity to do sort of social activities. We've got the Children in Care Council. So that's a body of children that kind of really help direct the service. There's all manner of sort of services available. There's, I'm trying to think what other ones there are, Dennis.
I mean, you've certainly streamlined the programme, haven't you, to bring more support people into, into play now.
Yeah.
So there's far more connection between everybody. There are that, and of course the nice thing is everybody gets involved in it. We know, I mean, where we've had caseworkers, counsellors, we were only talking before we came on air how I was just almost astonished. I shouldn't be, but I was astonished by the amount of support that was given by people like Amanda and from other people in the team. So it's almost too numerous to mention, but the main bodies are, the ones that Amanda has mentioned.
Yeah, we've also got, the virtual school. Mm-hmm. So they're sort of a council-run service, but they're really good at sort of, if anyone's having any issues in school, they'll work with the schools to make sure that that child gets the support that they need. And they've got a real understanding of sort of, the trauma and everything that children have experienced. They'll also help them get into local schools. So they're really positive. We've got support workers that work directly with children. And then we've got all sorts of external agencies as well. So, for instance, if a foster carer, for instance, has got to go somewhere on a Saturday and there isn't anyone else to look after that child on that particular day, we have got the facility to be able to ask one of the support workers to go in and sort of take the child out for the day and things like that. So, and then we've got the foster carers, but we've also got respite carers. They will give the other foster carers a bit of a break if they've got to go away or they've got an event to go to. So there's a whole sort of remit of people around, sort of a team around that child to make sure that every aspect of their needs is met.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that there's such a network of support with different stakeholders and organisations that are coming together to form this protective bubble around these children to make their lives more wholesome. So I thank you both for explaining that as well. Now, we've got these questions coming in thick and fast, and in the recent past, this is one of those programmes that has really, I am astounded at the amount of pickup that this is getting and generating interest. So I'm really happy with that. And that's why I'm really thankful to all three of you coming today. Thank you very much for that. Now, the next question is, what makes a great foster home? Now, Noreen, with all your training, and to imagine that you are a parent that is probably interested in fostering a child, because you did mention before, what in your opinion makes a great foster home? And then we'll go around.
I think for the child, the main thing is the child needs love, care. You need to look after the foster child as your own. And I think that's one of the main things that we need to look at. And obviously, if you have your own children, you know, looking after the child, you've got the experience. And it's just that motherly instinct that you need to give to the child as well.
Yeah. And that's wonderful. The whole maternal association. It's a huge undertaking, a responsibility to holistically take care of these children. Dennis?
I think it also helps if people have boundaries. There's boundaries both ways, is that people understand, you know, what are the norms, what are accepted. It doesn't mean to say that there are rules and regulations that bound everybody's life, but it does mean is that people know exactly it's a two-way process. It's communication, it's understanding each other. And there's nothing that, you know, the care experience people that I've talked to, they like to know where they stand, they feel they've got a voice, they're being heard, and sometimes somebody from outside, and I've noticed this with people I've dealt with, is that they pick up on things that perhaps nobody else has picked up on. Just by listening, just by being there, just by sort of supporting, being supportive of them. And that kind of thing just goes a million miles towards helping people to settle in, because as Amanda said before, there's always going to be there's always going to be a settling in period, and it's to help people get over that.
I think that's a really realistic view. The whole sort of talk about boundaries, and it's important that people have that realism in what to expect as well. It's great from an emotional perspective, Noreen. I think that was really important. That gives you the whole essence of commitment around the role, but actually the realism around the role as well is also very important, Dennis. So when you talk about boundaries and a two-way relationship, incredibly important in making sure that this relationship is more meaningful, and that both parties, the child and the parent, know exactly how to work around each other and navigate around each other when they're settling in. Amanda, do you have anything to add as well when you're looking for your parents? What are your expectations, obviously, as a local authority and an organisation? What makes a good foster home?
Well, what we look for is a genuine love of children. We look for stickability, because obviously, you know, when children are coming in, what we don't want is for them to be looked after and then they've got to move and move again. So we look for stickability, and we support people, you know, because there will be ups and downs. We look for people that work well with other professionals, because often, you know, the foster carer, because you're living with the child, you're going to be the main advocate for that child. So we want to make sure that, you know, people can advocate on behalf of that child and work with the professional team around the child. And, you know, I would say as well, a sense of humour also helps.
Yeah. Definitely.
Very true.
Very true. Absolutely. So that question was asked by Mr. Adil Shabir. And Mr. Adil Shabir, and I'm so pleased, I'd just like to say, Mr. Shabir, that I'm so pleased that you have taken an interest in this as a Muslim male who often don't talk about this openly. So I'm really proud of the fact that you've taken so much interest in this, and really thank you for asking those questions. So our next question that Mr. Shabir has asked is, what is the difference between fostering and adoption? Amanda?
Okay, so adoption is where you have a child come and live with you until they reach independence. So that child is legally yours. So we have what we call parental responsibility. So anyone who has a child has parental responsibility, and adoption is the only way that a parent will relinquish that parental responsibility to someone else. So if you adopt a child, they become legally your child. Whereas with fostering, that is more of it's a temporary arrangement. It's not, I mean, I say temporary, it can last one day to many years, but that child will never legally be yours. That, you know, if they are in care, there'll be the shared responsibility between the local authority and the parent. So that's the main difference, is that if you adopt, that child is legally yours. If you foster, then you're looking after them whilst the parents can't.
Yeah, and that's very straightforward with that. I hope that's answered your question. Now, I've got Mr. Munir Ahmed, who has put in a comment, and actually a really legitimate question as well. So Mr. Munir Ahmed says, I was involved in a campaign for Asian fostering in my area some time ago. One of the big questions which has always been asked about the financial help, and people want to come forward but are deterred by the financial implications. You need to do something about explaining what financial and other help they can get to encourage them to come forward. And this was something we were talking about during the break, weren't we, Amanda? Could you give that information to people listening today about what financial help they get with fostering?
Okay, so in Peterborough, we have fostering allowances for people that foster. Now, we have different skills levels for different age groups, but basically you'll get a fostering allowance between £250 up to £470 per child per week, and that depends on how you experience and the age of the child. Now, the fostering allowance, that is broken down into different areas. So, you know, so basically the government want to encourage people to foster. So say, for instance, you getting £300 a week for a 7-year-old. They would say £50 for food, £30 for clothes. Now, we don't ask for receipts or anything, but the way the government do it is that so by the end of the week, you will just be getting under £50, which would be your fostering wage. So it's not taxable. So it's a way to kind of encourage people to, one, have the allowance to be able to provide for the child, but also not be hindered by tax implications, because 40% of people that foster also work alongside fostering. So, you know, what I would say is if anyone is out there thinking about fostering and they've got another job, there's different types of fostering. So always bear in mind that you can work and foster.
Wonderful. Dennis and Noreen, do you have anything to add to that in terms of, have you come across any issues where people ask you about the financial help that an individual can get with reference to fostering?
It's always been a huge issue. It does. Every authority has a slightly different take on it. There are fostering agencies out there. There's direct. What we're doing is we're appealing on behalf of Peterborough City Council to recruit foster carers who want to work with us and our looked after children here in the city, as Amanda said so eloquently right at the beginning, to keep families together, to keep them close to home. The thing is that what we don't want, and it was a phrase that stuck with me from very early on in my days, is you don't want kids to feel like walking paychecks.
Yes.
So
yes.
The last thing that you want, you know, there is a very delicate balance between obviously the remuneration that people want, and they want that financial recognition, but the reward for the you know, what they can get in return from those, you know, from the looked after children is I would hope equals, if not outweighs it, but it always is going to be a delicate balance, because, you know, what we want to do is give them that safe, secure background, but make sure nobody's financially disadvantaged in the process.
I agree. Noreen, what do you have to say, please?
I think Dennis has actually covered that up quite nicely, but again, we would urge everyone to get in touch. We're always there, Amanda and the team, even ourselves, myself, Dennis. We can give you the figures. We can give you a hand with, you know, the whole process as well, if you like. We're always there for you. But what we want is people just like today, they're asking questions, but we want people to come forward and to start the fostering process if they have the room and the space and the love that they can give. So, yeah.
And like Dennis said, Amanda, it obviously we don't want these children to be considered like walking paychecks. And I guess the other advantage of people being financially remunerated is that the extra worry, so to speak, that could potentially interfere with caring for a child isn't there when you know that that's just one aspect that you don't have to worry about and that you can focus all your attention on looking after that child too. So that's the other aspect, isn't it?
Well, definitely. I mean, you know, as Dennis said, it's a very sort of fine line. Obviously, we don't want people coming forward to foster that are just interested in the financial reward. However, we do recognise it has to be financially viable for people to be able to live. And of course, we want children to have the sort of standard of living that, you know, people's own children have. So we have to make sure that people are able to do that. So we do have a fostering allowance, and, you know, we do have set up costs and all sorts of benefits financially for foster carers. So we want to make sure it's viable for people to be able to afford to foster.
Thank you.
It could always be better.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would be in any doubt anywhere across the land. We could always be better. But one of the things that we've worked hard on, I know that the officers have worked hard on, is recognise in people's experience and skill levels and the amount that people take on. And the one thing that even for somebody who's been part of the corporate parenting committee for 5 years, there are so many different ways that people can engage, that people can foster. You know, there's always this one size fits all. You take a child into your house, that's all there is. There's many different ways, and all we'd ask is just ask. You know, we're surrounded by some wonderful people. There is a recruitment team, Kay and a team, and they will answer any questions on that. And just saying, if I can only do it for this or this age or whatever, then, you know, I'm sure there's something and some way that we can do that. It will help everybody enormously.
It definitely will. And what I'd like to say on the back of that is that of those of you that are listening to this show, are interested in it, genuinely interested, please do get in touch either via Salam Radio, and they will signpost you to any of our counsellors or to Amanda as well, or your local counsellor. Like we've said in the beginning, that every counsellor will be involved in this to some level of input, and some might not know, but we always have Amanda to answer those questions as well, even if counsellors don't know enough about it. Now, Adil, so what I'm going to read you out Mr. Shabir's sort of last-ish comment, because this is great. And this is the reason why we need shows like this, to raise issues like this, because Mr. Adil Shabir has just said, Dr. Shabina, I, through this show, have a person interested in fostering now.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Wow,
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And
wonderful.
I've just got goosebumps just reading that.
As good as it gets, yeah.
Honestly, it is. So something great is happening here. Mr. Shabir goes on to ask another question. What checks are carried out to be able to become a foster parent? Amanda.
Okay. So obviously, you know, we have to ensure that people that are fostering are safe to do so. So let me just sort of say quickly about the process. The process is you would inquire to become a foster care. We would then come and visit you in your home. One of the recruitment officers come and visit in your home, just to look at your sort of, you know, the physical environment, talk about your motivation. Then if everyone was happy to proceed, then we would put you into what we call our fostering assessment, which is sort of a home study. So that's a process that lasts about anywhere between about 16 to 18 weeks. And in that process, we look at, you know, what kind of child's going to suit you and your family. And in terms of the checks, we have to do a medical check. We obviously organise and sort that out. We do a police check or DBS check. We have to do checks on where people have lived in the past, so we do local authority checks, and then we also do references, so we do employment references and we do local authority checks, and the reason for that is obviously we have to make sure, and I always say to people, if your child had to be fostered for whatever reason, you'd want to make sure the people looking after them had been checked out to a high level, so because they're all, obviously going to be looking after some of the most vulnerable children in the county. So there are a series of checks, but what I would say is through the process we guide people through that and help them, and ultimately we do the checks.
That's great, and it's pretty straightforward then as to what's been entailed. So I hope that that's answered your question, Mr. Shabir. And he's asked a very simple question: that can you still have pets and foster?
Yes, and yes, definitely. And what I would say is a lot of the children really get a lot out of families that have got pets in the home, because it's quite therapeutic for children. So we do a pet assessment on all pets, but we haven't got any issue with people having pets.
That's great to hear. And can individuals still foster, Mr. Shabir asks, if English is not their first language?
Yes. What I would say is, because the role of the foster carer is to advocate on behalf of children, we do need somebody in the household that has a good grasp of the English language, because they've got to work in a professional team and they've got to be able to advocate. But yeah, as long as one person can speak English, that's fine.
That's great. A question that's come up because Mr. Shabir has gladly asked a lot of the questions that had come forward to me before the show, which has been wonderful, and I'm so grateful for your input, Mr. Shabir. One of the questions I have been asked are fostering for disabled children. So there may be children who have severe disabilities, for example. How many of those do we have in our care, may I ask?
Well, it's hard to say, because what we have, there's different types of fostering. Some people think that fostering is just having a child come and live on a full-time basis, but there's lots of different types of fostering. And one of the types of fostering is what we call link fostering. So that's where you've got a child that's usually living with their birth family, and we've got foster carers that we call link foster carers, and they just have the child come and stay with them for short breaks to be able to give the family a little bit of time to themselves, especially if they've got quite significant additional needs or disabilities, and it enables sort of parents to spend time with the other children in the household. So they'll come on a regular basis to our link carers, and then we have foster carers that do foster on a full-time basis that have a specialism, like they might have been a nurse in the past or worked in a school with children with special needs, and they will have a specialism in caring for children with disabilities. So we're always looking for people that have got that specialism to either look after children with disabilities or offer short breaks.
Great way to put it. A really pertinent question has come here, and in fact a suggestion that I think that we can all take on board by Mr. Sarwar Jamal, who said, thank you for raising this important topic. And one thing I'd just like to say is that it has been heartening to see the male engagement from the Muslim community come forward and actually take a real interest in this. That has been wonderful. So thank you so much from all of us. Actually, Mr. Sarwar Jamal has said, thank you for raising this important topic. Awareness opens the door to engagement, which we all know is correct here. An open day at mosques may be one way of encouraging fostering. I know that you have a quite a big mosque in your ward, Noreen. Do you think that there is room or scope to open those doors of conversation with our mosques?
Absolutely. I've spoken to the committee members at the Wasia Mosque and also Fazani Medina Mosque, and they're more than happy to have Amanda and team on board. We're just looking into getting the imams to give a speech as well. So I think that would be really handy on the religious side as well.
That's fabulous. Well, thank you for that, Noreen. Again, we've got a question for Mr. Shabir. Is there a maximum age to foster?
No, I would say our oldest foster carer that we've got at the moment are in their 80s.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got, in fact, I'd say probably the majority of foster carers sort of come on board after 40. So, tend to be a bit older. But, yeah, there's the 21's the minimum, but there's no upper age limit at all.
That's great to hear. And we're in the last, this show always finishes early. I never get enough time, and I'd love to, but I want to open the last 2 minutes to yourselves to give your last thoughts. And Dennis, I'm going to start with you because you've been quiet for too long.
I think the major thing for me, going on from what Amanda was saying, we have got foster carers in their 80s. Some of them look after young babies. They've done it for years. And I had the pleasure and the absolute privilege to attend the awards that we did for foster carers last November. St Ives, I think it was St Ives. And people were coming up and thanking me for giving them awards. And I'm thanking them for and it was such a warm, it was just a privilege, an absolute privilege. And if I could bottle that and share it with anybody who's listening tonight and people they know, believe me, I would. It's a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much. We've got 15 seconds. Noreen and Amanda, thank you so much. And Dennis, thank you so much. You've been a fab trio. You really have on Salam Radio.
Thank you, Shabina.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to bid you all Assalamu alaikum and thank you.